Hey everyone, this is Edison Guzman with the Business Learning Center. And today I have a special guest. This is Greg Hogan of the Curabba Agency. Okay, Curabba Insurance Agency, but the company's name is actually Curabba Agency. And he's also known as the best insurance agent in Orange County. How's it going there, Greg?
Going well, Edison. Good to see you.
Now, it's Curabba Agency, right?
Yeah, Curabba Agency is the public facing name. We have a hidden corporate name, but Curabba Agency is the public facing name. We actually have two agencies, Curabba Agency and Renicky Agency, and we just use those names because we bought long-time legacy agencies in the Middletown area. People don't really need to know my name; they need to know the agency name. So we left the names intact.
Perfect, perfect. All right, so we're gonna get right to the questions, and this is about business owners. So I'm gonna ask you today about business insurance. I know you do a lot of different types of insurances, but let's talk about business insurance today. First of all, what does business insurance cover?
Business insurance, at its root, it covers your business property. It covers any lawsuits you might face, depending on the type of coverage you have. It covers vehicles that you may own in the business, and it will cover your workers with workers' comp and group health insurance if you decide to buy the group health insurance as well. Pretty
All right,
much,
so
it's designed to cover. It's designed to cover any exposure. There are literally hundreds of types of business insurance.
okay, so there are hundreds of types. Okay, so we're only going to stick with a few today because
Correct.
I know
Correct.
this could be hours and hours. And one thing I have to say also, you're also an instructor for our ESP program, which I've been running for many, many years. And you're going to be teaching for us again in the spring of this year. And we're doing this interview in 2024. So I
Yep.
thank you for that because you volunteer your knowledge and your knowledge is so free, So anyway, so let's talk a little bit more about insurance. Okay, is business insurance required in New York State? Is it mandatory for a business owner to have insurance?
Some lines of coverage are mandatory. Okay, so if you have workers on payroll, that's going to be mandatory because you need to have workers' comp and disability slash PFL, paid family leave for them, for anyone on payroll. Owners, depending on the size of the business, need to be covered in that as well. The other line of coverage that's mandatory is auto liability. So if you have, it's just the same with personal auto. If you have a business owned vehicle, you need to have liability insurance on it, period. But other entities can compel you to buy coverage, and this is where this is where it gets a little more complicated. You're getting a loan, the lender's going to require you to get coverage on a building, coverage on equipment, coverage on a vehicle. If you are working for a specific entity, they might just say, come on our premise, you need to have liability insurance. So, sometimes a business owner needs to get coverage by law, and sometimes they need to get coverage because of another entity, the landlord or a customer or a lender is requiring it.
Okay, so let me just clarify something because this is a question that I get a lot, which is I have a car that's personally owned by me, but I use it
Yep.
for business also. Is that business insurance covered or is that my auto policy covered?
Well, when you're buying a personal auto policy, one of the questions is this car used for business or in business? And we go into a lot into this, in individual cases, but um, sometimes you can use your personal vehicle for business. Sometimes you cannot. If the vehicle is titled to a business name, definitely not. You need a business policy. If you have a vehicle titled in a personal name, but you want to letter it up for a business, for a contractor, or really anything, we're going to strongly recommend you get a business auto policy, not a personal auto policy. But there is a little bit of gray area there for some people to use their personal cars in the business name,
Okay,
for business, I should say.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of business owners get these types of insurance all the time, and the ones that are required, I would imagine that you need to be insured prior to starting your business, or is this something that you can just get later on as in life?
Well, I mean, listen, our best customers come from people who have done a business plan, who know what they're getting into, and they've put together the proper couple of year plan for their business, and they've investigated what business insurance is going to cost. Other people just start up a business, and if there's no landlord or lender requiring them to have business owners insurance, then quite often they don't have property and liability for the business. They're a sole proprietor, cleaning offices, let's say. They should have a policy, but quite often they don't. And then something happens, and that's when they come calling someone like me. We always encourage people to have business insurance either when you start your business or as soon as you talk to someone like me.
So you don't really need it right from the start. However, if you have employees, I would imagine you need workers' comp at least from the beginning.
Yeah, you definitely, as soon as you have employees on payroll, you need workers' comp. As soon as you have 1099 employees, you really kind of do need workers' comp as well. That gets to be a very complicated thing. Our employees really 1099 employees or not? Obviously we're not going to have a chance to cover that today. But I would encourage all business owners, get a business policy right away. A basic business policy for a startup business can be as little as $400 or $500, could be into the many, many thousands, depending on what you're doing. But, you're running a business, you're generating an income, you're putting yourself out on the line. You can be sued at any time for anything. Why not prepare for that before it happens rather than try to scramble afterward?
That's for sure. And now for people who are working out of their homes and they're running online stores, e-shops, e-com, or any of those things, do they need to get insurance or should they get insurance?
They absolutely should get insurance. There are some special forms for a home-based business or businesses out of the home. We have a couple different options for that, but on every homeowner policy, because we write homeowners as well. So on every homeowner policy, the question comes up, do you run a business from your home? And people oftentimes say, no, I don't do that. And then we find out they have an Etsy shop and a woodworking shop in the garage, and they're selling stuff and making stuff. Talk to your agents when you start doing that. Don't just assume that your homeowner policy is going to cover that. Your homeowner policy is not going to cover your business or any business inventory. In fact, you might have a homeowner claim denied because you have a business going in it. So if you're running a business of any sort, you want to have some sort of business insurance. You need to talk to an agent to do that.
Okay, so you mentioned agent. Can you give me the difference between what an insurance agent versus an insurance broker is? Because I know you're an insurance broker, so can you just
Correct. So an agent is an agent of the company, okay? And speaking to an agent is just like speaking to the company. So if I'm an agent, if I have an agent's contract with a specific company, as we do in some cases, talking to me is effectively talking to the company. And once I say you're covered, even if the policy hasn't been issued yet. It's called binding authority. A broker represents a customer. Okay. And if I have a broker contract with a company, and we have that too, then we have to send in the paperwork, wait for confirmation back from the carrier to confirm coverage is in force. But the real issue is not between agent and broker. It's independent agent versus a captive agent. So someone like me, an independent agent, we have access to dozens and dozens of companies depending on the line of business. Some other types of agents, and I don't want to go into names here, but they're direct writers. They have one option. They have one company. I can go to you, someone comes to me for a small business policy, we have 5, 6 options. Okay. Doesn't mean I'm going to show you 5 or 6 quotes because we have those options, but we know who will write your type of business. So if you're a contractor, I go to one company. If you're a retail store, I'm probably going to go to a different company. We have the flexibility to mix and match and put you in the best spot for what you do.
So how do I know that I have the right insurance then? How do I know if I should go to an insurance agent, to a broker, I mean, obviously, if you're giving me more choices, I should probably consider you because people like to shop around. So
Yes.
how do I know? What's the best way to do it?
Well, we see a lot of people trying to go online to buy coverage. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that at all because you have no idea what you're looking for, what you're doing. You're just buying on price. And in the absence of any education, price is the only thing that matters. But if you don't know what you're buying, how do you know what it should cost and how do you know what you should buy? So when people come to us, we can place them, interview them, find out what they're doing, where they're doing it, how they're doing it. And then we go and approach our carriers and try to find the best option for you. It doesn't cost you any extra to work with someone like me. Everybody thinks, well, if I go online and there's not an agent that's getting paid a commission, all agents are paid a commission, generally between 10 and 18% of the premium we get paid as commission. But if you're buying online, everybody thinks they'll get it cheaper because they bought online. Not so, but you're also not getting advice. You're not getting guidance. So we always encourage people, talk to an agent. And the phrase agent and broker really gets kind of, everybody views them all as one and the same. As long as you're talking to an agent that has, numerous options, probably going to get some pretty good treatment.
One of the things that I've known you for a while now, Greg, you've volunteered for a lot of things that I've been a part of, which greatly appreciated. But one of the things when I refer someone to you, one of the things that I get from the individual is that they call me up and say, wow, Greg just saved me X number of dollars. Now, one of the ways you do that is based on what you just mentioned, which is you ask people what their needs are, and then you match them to the coverage, as opposed to this policy is $1,000, 2,000, 10,000, but the person may not know exactly what they're paying for. So can you elaborate on how it is that possibly you can save people money by just matching them properly?
Well, it's really we pay attention to coverage before we pay attention to price. We need to know what you need for coverage. And then, and we find that out by talking to you and asking you questions. And then from there, we're going to try to find the best price for what you're doing. Sometimes we'll save you money on the front end with premium. Sometimes we save you a lot of money on claims on the back end when you have an uncovered claim, or when you have a claim that's now covered, whereas previous to that it was uncovered. But really, it's all about learning what your business does, how you do it, where you do it, who you do it with. And then we help guide you to buy the proper coverage at the proper coverage limits.
So do you offer a service that helps people with that? Like, do you look at people's policies and then you review them, or what's how do you do these things?
I will sit and interview a new client either on the phone or in my office to find out, what do they do? Do they have insurance already? If they have insurance already, we generally ask them to send us their policy, not because we care about what they're paying now. We want to see how they're covered. And I'm going to give you an example. I recently had a landscaper come to me, and he told me he does lawn care and all these, things that normal landscapers do. And he told me he does plowing in the winter, as many of them do. He didn't have proper coverage for plowing on his policy. And even though the agent said, yeah, you're covered for that, the agent couldn't demonstrate that he had plowing coverage. And I can very easily point it out when we add that to someone's policy. So, but we always will sit, we'll review your policies, we'll tell you what you have, what you need, what you may not need. Sometimes we see double coverage. Just goes to one-on-one service, much like any attorney's going to give you, any accountant's going to give you. We're professionals. We're not just salespeople selling you a book in a retail store.
Right. No, and that's definitely one of the things that have made you so successful. You're not just out there, selling everyone and everything. You really educate people, and that's what I love about, working with you. Now, how would I know if I have the right insurance by looking at my policy? Is it better to speak to someone like you, or is it better for me to just go back to my policy right now and read through it?
Well, listen, you may not understand it if you read it. I mean, the easiest thing to do, give us a call, come in and see us, and bring your policies with you. We'll explain what you have. We'll explain what we can do, how we could do it differently if we can help you. Sometimes we can't help you. Sometimes you're really good the way you are, and we just tell you that. But the average business owner, the average person has no idea how to buy insurance. They don't know what they need. And that's where an experienced agent comes into play.
All right, so how would someone contact you? What's your contact info?
You can find me online. My agency is CurabbaAgency.com. So it's CURABBA.com is our website. We have a contact us form on there. You can just call the office straight, 845-343-0855.
Okay, so I want to ask you one question that you may not get all the time, but what's one insurance question that you get asked often by business owners that you always say, "Oh man, you should know this." Like, can you think of at least one question that people ask all the time?
A question I'm asked that people should know. Um, the only thing I could say is people oftentimes, ask what a very basic, terms mean. What's liability? What am I covered for? Um, you should know that. Most people just think because they have a policy that it covers everything. No, that's not so. You should really, at a minimum, understand most of what your policy does for you. I don't mean super technical details. An insurance policy is really technical. It's a legal contract that's been decades and decades, in the making. But to have a little bit of idea of what you're covered for and how your premium is calculated would be a good idea.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so can you also tell me, I didn't ask you this at the beginning, but I did mention you do cover pretty much all types of insurance, but was I right to say that? Do you cover pretty much anything? Business,
Yeah,
residential, commercial, all that?
we write home and auto. We do a ton of home and auto, so that would be personal lines coverage. Your toys, your jet skis, your boats, that kind of stuff. Uh, I started many years ago. I've been at this over 30 years, Edison. I started many years ago doing group life and life insurance. We now also do Medicare, and of course business insurance. And there's just tons and tons and tons of forms of business insurance depending on what you do.
That's awesome. Well, so I guess you're a one-stop shop for anything that has to do with that. So,
We can cover most anything.
excellent. Well, I'm not going to keep this interview going for too long. I thank you for taking the time and answering these questions. I know you're a very busy person. I know you're in Middletown, but if someone outside of Middletown contacts you, can you help those individuals?
Oh, sure. We have customers all the way up all over New York State into other states. We primarily operate in New York, but yeah, anyone from out of the area, not in Middletown can speak with us anywhere in New York.
Perfect. All right. So with that, I'm going to leave you for today, Greg. And thanks a lot again for being on with me. Again, this is Edison Guzman with the Business Learning Center with Greg Hogan of Curabba Agency. Thanks again, Greg. I'll see you at the next meeting.
Yeah. Thanks, Edison. Appreciate it.